Hey there, it's Julie, and I am on today because Tom Daphne tagged me for his deck creator tag. And so thank you, Tom. And also, he's tagged you too, just in case you didn't know. He has tagged everyone and anyone who wants to join in, and he's provided 7 prompts. And these are prompts that we are at liberty to change or skip or add to. So please do, if you are inclined, please do join in on this because I would love to hear more about your deck creations. And this is not just for decks that say are, published or available on a print on demand. I mean, these could be decks that you have just created for yourself, and maybe not even necessarily from scratch. You took an existing playing card deck, say, and added to that and made it its own thing. I just think that we can use the term deck creator more loosely here, or I invite you to. Before we get into the prompts, I'm going to be self-indulgent here and go through all the decks that I've created. And I think it'll be helpful too for when I answer these prompts that I can just quickly refer to these, and you'll have a sense of which one I'm talking about. And I'm going to try to go in the order that I created them, but I'm a little hazy on some of the sequencing, but I'm going to do my best. The first deck that I ever made was this Major Arcana He-Man She-Ra Tarot. And I'll just show you a few cards. Basically just took screen grabs. So you can tell, some images are a little stretched and others don't have like the best resolution. Next up is my Cup of Contemplation cards. And this is a prompt-based deck that I use to create spreads or readings for tarot or oracle. And I also use this if I just want to journal. This also speaks to my love of mugs and cups. I am a mug collector. I think after that, I might have done this one. This is my Bitmoji Lenormand, where I basically made an avatar of myself and created a Lenormand deck. And this was actually with the help of Jamie Sawyer. At one point, she provided instructions for how to create a Bitmoji Lenormand. And I don't even know, is Bitmoji still a thing? It might be, but I think they changed the style of their avatar to one that I didn't like. So I think I deleted the app a while ago. Next up is Inspired Soul Tarot. This is a pip deck, and this was meant to illustrate finding inspiration in the mundane. And so for the various suits, they illustrate different hobbies. So pentacles or coins illustrates sewing or being a sewist. You have the cups for wine tasting or visiting wineries. What else here? We have the painting hobby for wands. And then for swords, we have writing. And then we have the Notorious JBG Tarot Mini based on Jasmine Beckett Griffith's artwork that she placed in the public domain. And I followed that up with the JBG Oracle. And I decided to make this one square. We have the Storytale Lenormand. This is very much storybook slash fairy tale vibes. That's what I was going for with this one. And then the spoopy lenormand, because I wanted something like cute, spooky, Halloween themed, and yeah, I couldn't quite find a lenormand that ticked the boxes that I wanted it to tick. So, and then I feel like after that was the Bangtan Tarot, and this another square deck. This was a collaboration with Sarah from Sarah Arcana and Heather from Suits and Shadows, and this is based on the Korean music group BTS. And then we move on to my little mini animal deck. Trigger warning, insects, spiders, snakes. I don't know what's gonna show up when. So this is just a little mini that I created for myself. Well, I mean, all of these decks I created for myself, but this one is not available for purchase. These last two decks are handmade Major Arcana decks. So here we have my Twilight Majors Only Tarot. And then finally, we have my Last Unicorn Tarot. And I know that there is a licensed version out there. I once had it. It did not resonate. I went ahead and made this. And I decided to do landscape because why not? And I love it. All right, now let's go ahead and get into the tag. So question one, what made you create these decks? Was it a specific need, a sudden burst of inspiration? So for a majority of my decks, it was either that I couldn't find the kind of deck that I wanted in the marketplace, so I made it for myself, or I made the deck as a way of becoming more comfortable with that reading format or that system. So, you know, with my Major Arcana Masters of the Universe Tarot, that was a fandom deck that did not exist. Since making that deck, somebody did create a full 78 card deck and had that available for a time. It's now out of print, and I do have it and love it. And then, you know, for Cup of Contemplation, I know that there are other prompt-based decks out there, but they just weren't hitting the mark for me in terms of either just kind of like visuals or the types of questions or prompts that the deck was providing. With my Lenormand decks, it was a way to feel comfortable, more at ease with the format of Lenormand and learning the 36 cards. And then same for the Inspired Soul Tarot, just becoming, you know, wanting to become more comfortable with pip style decks. With like the JBG decks, I just really love Jasmine Beckett Griffith's artwork, and I know it's not for everybody. And she has so many decks, right? When her art became available in the public domain, I mean, that was, first of all, so generous of her. And then it got me so excited because finally I'd be able to create a tarot and oracle deck that was suited specifically for me. Because I know that there's the Beautiful Creatures Tarot that exists, and that did not work for me personally. And then, I did have a few of her oracle decks, and they lasted only for a finite amount of time. And then that season was over, and I no longer used them or picked them up and passed them on. So it's interesting because as much as I love JBG's artwork, aside from the two that I created and the Le Vampire Oracle that somebody gifted to me, those are the only decks I have of hers or that showcase her art. So for Bangtan Tarot, I mean, I think this started off as like a joke that I made, maybe in like a comment section to one of Sarah's videos or something. Like I joked like, oh, we should, by the way, we should go ahead and make like a BTS deck. And then all of a sudden, the three of us, Heather, Sarah, and I were making a BTS deck. And that was just a frenetic blur. I don't remember much about it other than the fact that it was it was chaotic and it was like manic. It was manic, and it did not take that long to create. Number 2, what tools did you use? Traditional medium, photographs, collage, digital AI. So, okay, so these handmade decks, like, like this one and my Masters of the Universe, these were made with blank playing cards that you can find super cheap online. My printer, like screen grabs, and then my printer, and then glue and contact paper. So it was like just using stuff that I already had available to me. Now this one's a little different in that I went ahead and printed these onto directly onto like a cardstock paper, as opposed to printing out the screen grabs on regular paper and then gluing them onto blank cards. So this was easier to do because it cut out the step of gluing. It does make a kind of like a flimsier type of deck though, but that's okay. It still works for me. And again, this is contact paper. It's just patterned. Bangtan Tarot, screen grabs. And then once we selected all the screen grabs, then we would go ahead and place them in Canva and format them on Canva, knowing what we wanted the specs to be for a print on demand site. And then let me think what else. So the rest of these decks, so a deck like JBG, images already provided. So once again, it was a matter of my just going onto Canva and formatting this on Canva and choosing the text and putting that on there. These other decks, like Cup of Contemplation and Inspired Soul, that required me to look for vector imagery. So either I would find vector images on a public domain or free use site, or if I could not find exactly what I wanted, I would go to a site that sold images, and so then I would just buy that image for like $1 or whatever. And then I would take those images, put them into Adobe Illustrator. So I think that's like comparable to like Photoshop. And so in Illustrator, I would go ahead and modify those images, whether it be taking away or adding certain aspects to them, changing up the color, that kind of thing. And then so once I had each piece how I wanted it, I would take those pieces and put them into Canva and create the final result. So, I mean, I never really thought of it before, but I guess it's kind of like collaging the different pieces together to then create the final design. So just as an example, for Inspired Soul Tarot, here's the Empress card. And, these are separate elements. These flowers here, the butterfly, the stump, this piece right here with the rock, like they're all separate. And I would maybe like change the color of the butterfly or change the color of, these flowers, take away some of them or add to some of them. And then like, again, bring them all together in Canva to then create this final image. And then like, same thing with this, like these are all separate paint brushes. And I, chose the different colors for them. And then on Canva, configured them like such, added this elemental symbol, added the number, added the paint splotch. So it actually was pretty time consuming, even though it might not look that way. Number 3, how long did it take? How did you organize yourself during the creation process? Okay, that one's a hard question because it's been a hot minute since I've created a lot of these decks. As I mentioned, Bangtan, that took like a few weeks, maybe. That was probably the shortest because, yeah, I mean, that was like, a combined effort of 3 people. So that does help. And then these other ones, I mean, months. So some might have taken a couple months, some might have taken a little more. With Inspired Soul Tarot, this was a project that actually started in 2019, and then I took a break, and then resumed in 2020 when the pandemic hit, and I had more time to actually devote to this to get this done and dusted. One thing I will say about my process is that once I have the conceit down and I know the direction I want to go in, and I have just all the pieces firmly set in my mind of what I need to do, I am balls to the wall. And so when I gain that momentum, it is hard for me to stop. And so I just keep going. I don't take many breaks, maybe to go to the bathroom, maybe to grab a bite, but then I am back at it. With the handmade, like they don't actually take all that long in that, I'm not doing a full 78 cards. I'm just doing the major arcana. And again, once I got into the rhythm of printing things out, cutting things up, it just becomes easier and faster. The part that does take a considerable amount of time is choosing the different vectors, that I wanted to use for my images, or, finding and choosing the screen grabs, going through JBG's repository to find the perfect image, or what I deem to be the perfect image or representation of that tarot archetype. And then, of course, the formatting involved does take time too, depending on how large you want the deck to be, what you want the specs of the cards to be. So, but of course, with each deck that I made, it became easier and faster, depending. Number 4, what kind of system is it based on? Tarot, RWS, Marseille, Oracle, etc. So, as you already saw, a mix. You have Oracle, more of like a prompt-based journaling type deck, lenormand, tarot, definitely leaning toward like fandom decks for many of these. RWS leaning for most of them. And then I have my Inspired Soul, which was the PIP deck. Number 5, is it available for others? Are you planning on making it available? How? Print on demand, Kickstarter, etc. So yes, several of these decks are available on Make Playing Cards. You can find my shop link in the description box. Cup of Contemplation cards, Inspired Soul, both my JBGs, both the Lenormand. I want to say we might have a few copies of Bangtan Tarot left for any army out there. We did just a short print run specifically for army who wanted a copy. And so if you are interested in the Bangtan Tarot, I will leave information for you to contact Sarah over at Sarah Arcana. Number 6. How has this deck integrated, enriched, or changed your practice? So as I mentioned, with my pip deck, with my lenormand, creating those really helped me to feel more at ease and to feel more comfortable and familiar. Although if I don't keep practicing with pip and lenormand, I do get rusty. So there is that. But then, hey, I at least have decks here that I know I will want to use, right? For when I want to go back to lenormand and pip. And especially with, pip decks, I'd always had the misconception that pip decks were lazy. And for me personally, that is not the language I want to use anymore, because taking the time to learn more about pips, taking the time to create a pip deck. I mean, again, they might, like, my deck might look pretty simple in terms of the pips. These took a lot of time. And not only that, but this is the nature of a pip deck. This is the traditional format of a pip deck, that you're going to have these kind of simplified configurations. And so for me, I didn't feel right to keep saying that pip decks were lazy, because for me personally, my perception changed to be that it's not lazy, that's just what they are. They're just standard pips. Now, I might find them aesthetically boring. So there is that. I think that's the difference. And then other pip decks to have pretty pips, right? So that's more engaging for me. That resonates more with me. So I've definitely had a change of heart in terms of how I perceive pip decks, and again, just growing more comfortable in using them, and thereby wanting to use them more. And then finally, number 7, do you have any future deck creations you wish to talk about, hint or tease? No, not at the moment. Although I will say that because of like the craziness going on with like the tariffs and such, I know that it's difficult for especially the people in the US to buy decks off of Make Playing Cards. I certainly have not been able to do that. And so I have created a prototype of my Notorious JBG, just to start with, because that is by far my most popular deck. The JBG decks are my most popular. So I'm starting off with the Tarot Mini, and I have a prototype coming to me from Game Crafter. That is a US based company. So I'm gonna see if I did that right, because that was its own interface to learn. So we'll see how that looks. And then if all goes well, I am planning to make that available on Game Crafter, as well as the JBG Oracle, fingers crossed. So at the very least, those two, and maybe even Cup of Contemplation, because that is another popular deck. Like, I think those are the top 3 popular decks. So, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. And that concludes this tag. Thank you once again if you've stuck with me for this long to hear me talk about me, myself, and I. I really appreciate it. And I would love to hear from you, whether it be in the comment section or doing a video response of your own. Like, what decks have you created? Like I said, it doesn't have to be, a published deck or one that's available to others. Like, if you did your own dirty DIY, I would love to read about it or see it. So please do share if you're so inclined. I hope you all are doing well and taking care of yourselves. I will catch you in the next video.